Do you feel like coming down from the wall? Do you feel like throwing in the towel and giving up? Don't do it. You're made for such a time as this. Hey, and welcome to Sunbrook Takeaway. I'm Tanner Treffin, joined by Pastor Joey Rumble, and we are going to help you apply the message from this past Sunday, Divine Moments.
Super excited. Scripture talks about, those who hear my words and do them will be blessed in all their ways. It talks about that in James. So super excited to apply the message.
It was just an awesome Sunday. We had 3 people get baptized. Shout out to Diane, Brittany, and Jack. Just awesome. Check out the baptism videos. Especially stuff to me, Brittany was just on fire.
That was great.
The truth she was bringing.
She was wearing the Esther shirt.
Yeah, for such a time as this, she mentioned that in the video, and it's just really cool seeing a mother son get baptized. She talked about not my family, like we're going to serve the Lord.
That's right, not my sons.
Yeah, that's just so encouraging, so inspiring.
And, it was cool. And then we launched groups. That was so amazing to launch groups and get people jumped in,
not doing life alone, growing together.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great day.
Yeah, great. And she brought up your message about that one of the main responsibilities of a parent is to help your children be discipled. To be a discipler of your children is your biggest responsibility. And what an example, the mother getting baptized and then her son getting baptized. And then I talked to her husband, Brian, right after, and he said, well, he's next, pointing to their next son. And so I was like, man, they're on mission to help their kids know Jesus.
Yeah,
awesome.
Love it. That's so exciting. And really that ties into Esther, where Mordecai became her adopted father to help shape and guide Esther. It's silent about those years, but so it'd be cool when we get to heaven to know what took place. But
yeah, just powerful. I like you were talking about, hey, if you got a sob story, sad story, tell it to Esther. And I think that's true. Esther's gone through some hard things, and there's just so much comfort and relatability in her story and how to still live for the Lord. Laneige Garrison, she has this real horrible story of abuse and neglect in her story, and she says, abuse is not an excuse for disobedience to God. And I remember that because that was such a good line.
Ooh, that's strong. Finding that healing in the Lord. I mean, she lost both her parents, Esther did, but was able to be used mightily of the Lord in the midst of such loss and pain.
Yeah, the thriving in the difficult circumstances. And I feel like that's just a big shout out to all the people out there who have adopted kids or have stepped in and been a stepdad or stepmom in a broken family and are pouring in a place where it's hard. Mordecai shows that of trying to really minister to his cousin who really needs that father figure. So it's just powerful.
Yeah, and we'll get more and more into Mordecai because the book's titled Esther, but it's amazing how much the Lord uses Mordecai in his role as well. So Esther's the main character for sure, but Mordecai has such key roles as well.
Yeah, and the book of Esther is such an interesting book. You pointed out how God's not mentioned.
Not one time.
Not one time in the Bible. In a book of the Bible, God's not even mentioned. That's just crazy. And you brought up this quote, though. Don't mistake God's silence for his indifference. That just because you don't see him working doesn't mean he's not working, but Esther really shows he's working behind the scenes the whole time.
Yeah, and I think that quote really applies to the book of Esther. So as you go to read it, I believe you should, it was a key point of the author helping us to, which some people think Mordecai might have been the main writer of Esther, but we don't know. It's anonymous, who wrote it. But making sure that as you read the book, look for God's activity, and we should do the same thing in our lives. When we feel like he's silent, remember what God's done and look for his activity.
That's good. You said one of the big points was be faithful, and 2 conversations I had this week on people that were talking about being faithful is just my wife last night. She's like, I've been reading the Bible for decades, or I don't know if she said decades, but at least a decade, and just consistently reading through the Bible like every year. And lately I've been just getting a little slack, and it's time to get back on the horse, get back on the wall and really, keep reading the Word. And so she got up early and was reading the Word, and I was just so cool, so proud of her. And another guy, Kenneth, Kat's husband, who's Kat's been serving in student ministry, he came up to me and said, hey, I feel like I just need to really lead my family even better and help disciple my son more. And I want to get involved in student ministry. And he's just being faithful and getting on the wall. And I just think that's so awesome.
Oh, it's huge. And so I think it's one of the biggest leadership lessons that Jesus gave us is to be faithful in little, faithful in much. And I think we really neglect those small things, not realizing how important they are. But right there, if you realize that those small things add to large things because you develop patterns. So as we're applying this message, we're leaning into those quiet years because Esther ends up being promoted. Mordecai ends up being as well and making a massive difference. But you got to be faithful in the small to be ready for the big. And I think also that part about realizing in those difficult circumstances to be faithful, you got to remember God's not through with you. God's still there using you, and just be encouraged by that.
Yeah, the small moments people are making right there. Deciding to read the Bible, deciding to jump into a group this past Sunday or this Sunday coming up, or deciding to get baptized, or deciding to serve. Those are things that have such big impacts.
Yeah. I think another one for me as a pastor, one of the most important things I can do is looking over my to-do list, deleting stuff I've already done, deleting my emails, going through those small little details, because people are involved with so many of those little things that it helps me not forget someone I committed to follow through with something, or pass on to someone, or check in on something to inspect. Because if you don't inspect, you don't get what you expect. So all of those things seem like little things, but they're massive. They lead to really big results.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Karate Kid point you brought up. Paint the fence. Sand the floor, wash the car. I just thought that was so funny. I love that movie, by the way, and I'm excited to watch it with my kids once they get old enough to watch.
Yeah, and some of those movies are, the Rockies, the Karate Kids. They're not dated, so those illustrations really drive any culture. I love
timeless.
Those. Yeah. They are.
It's good. So that was actually my big takeaway. Is when no one notices. You said this. When no one notices, it's the time to work on your character, and that those behind the scene moments of those daily disciplines. And you talked about people can even get promoted, and really be like hating it or regretting it in the moment because the pressure of that promotion is bigger than their character.
Yeah, and I've heard it been said another way by a pastor who said, I realized my gifting had outpaced my character.
Oof.
And so that's huge.
Yeah.
Because you'll get to the point, and that gifting will promote you where there's so much stress with that.
Responsibility.
And and if you don't have the character to sustain that, you're going to take a fall.
It'll eat you.
Yeah.
Eat you up.
And guess what? That you affect other people in your life as well, and they'll receive the shrapnel from your own fall.
Jeez.
So that's where the Dick Vermeil quote, preparation plus opportunity equals success. So always prepare. Because, and we're going to get into this next week, so I want to be careful what I say, because I really want to drive it this coming week. So I'll pause right there, because I was about to preach my message.
You'll have to join us this Sunday.
Yeah, make sure you tune in this Sunday.
Yeah, cool. What was your takeaway, Pastor Joe?
I think being reminded how important the small is. I used to share another quote. Can you grow in the Lord in your areas of leadership by 0.1% every day? Or 0.01%. It doesn't, because that compounds. So can you, and obviously everyone, I can grow by 0.1%. I can do that. Well, if you do that every day, man, it's amazing how much your growth, especially the areas God has given you priorities to lean into.
Yeah, and it's worth growing to glorify God, and also to love the people that are following you better. And so I think that's good motivation.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge.
Cool. Any other final thoughts?
No. Just a reminder. Summer groups, they're rolling. Excited about them, and continue to jump in and serve, make a difference for the Lord. It's exciting. We had, I think, 20. I think Jeanette said we had 20 at Next Step Sunday, wanting to serve, wanting to discover their purpose and make a difference. That was exciting.
Good things are happening. We love you guys. Thanks so much for joining. And let's continue to build our house on the rock together and walk in our takeaways. God bless you. See you next week.